What do you think would signal the true start of a dollar crisis?
Well, I think it's started already. I think gold at 5,000 is an indication that this is happening. Foreign central banks uh, expressing a preference for gold over dollars and foregoing the interest that they would earn on those dollars. But I think what you're going to see is the crisis expanding, not just gold, but in foreign exchange. The dollar was down last year, but not that dramatically. I mean, it was down, maybe 5%, 10%. I think it'll be down more than that this year against other currencies. And I think this is going to snowball as the dollar really starts to fall. And that's going to put a lot of downward pressure on the bond market, which means upward pressure on interest rates. And that's going to cause the Fed to really panic, to try to stop interest rates from rising by creating even more inflation, to buy up the bonds that are being dumped on the market. And that's when the crisis really could get out of hand. We get an all-out run on the dollar with very adverse consequences. I mean, much more severe than the 2008 financial crisis. And I think today people are ignoring what's happening in gold the way they ignored what happened in subprime, because I remember when the subprime market blew up in '07, and we were short subprime, so we made some money on that trade. But I had been predicting this for years, that it would blow up. But I knew that it wasn't just a problem with subprime mortgages. I knew that the entire housing market was resting on a foundation of cheap credit, and just subprime was just the weakest link of that chain, but that they were all going to go. But what did the Fed say, Ben Bernanke and everybody else, Wall Street? Don't worry, it's contained to subprime. And I was saying, no, it's a tip of an iceberg. You have no idea what's beneath the surface here. And I was right. We ended up with a financial crisis because it wasn't contained to subprime. Well, what's happening in gold is a similar warning, but not about the credit quality of mortgages, but the credit quality of treasuries. It's the U.S. government that is in question, not just subprime or mortgage borrowers. And this is the warning that is being ignored. People just think, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's a bubble in gold." But the subprime warning, predated the financial crisis by about a year. You had about a year to realize that it was going to hit the fan.
And what happens if the dollar breaks? Where do people go?
Well, I mean, they're going to gold. They're going back to their own currencies. They're buying real assets. But the important thing is what happens to America, what happens to our economy, because our economy is predicated on the dollar's reserve status. It doesn't work. If we can't run trillion-dollar-a-year trade deficits, it doesn't work. Because we don't have the factories anymore. We don't have the infrastructure, the supply chains, the trained workers. We rely on the rest of the world to produce what we can't. And because we don't really have any savings, we're all in debt, we rely on the rest of the world to save for us and lend us money. And so when the world doesn't do that anymore, when it's no longer willing to supply us with goods and lend us money, what do we got? How does this economy function? Because you look at who are the biggest employers in America? FedEx, UPS, Walmart, Amazon. Like, what do those companies do? They transport and sell imported goods. But what happens when we can't afford to import the goods anymore? Well, there's nothing to drive around. There's nothing on the shelves are empty. So all those workers lose their jobs at the same time that consumers can't buy anything. We're a service sector economy, but that only works so long as we can outsource the manufacturing. Well, we can't do that if the world doesn't want our dollars anymore. The only way the world's going to trade with us is if we have something to trade other than paper. We'd have to have products. See, the reason that countries export is to import. Your exports pay for your imports. But we're able to import without exporting because people want our dollars. Well, when they don't want our dollars anymore, then we got to make stuff. But you can't just, make stuff the way you print money. Making stuff requires real capital investment. It requires the factories and the infrastructure that we don't have anymore. We had it 100 years ago, 50 years ago. We don't have it anymore. It's gone. And it's going to take a long time to rebuild it. Now, maybe AI and robots, maybe that'll help, I don't know how, what the timeline is there, but we've got a lot of work to do. But we're in for a rude awakening because Trump has got it completely backwards. He says the world's been ripping us off. We've been ripping off the world. We've been living off the world. We've been riding on a global gravy train. They're the ones that have gotten the short end of the stick. And that's why I think that as the world dumps the dollar, there's going to be an economic boom outside the United States, because I think that we have been a burden that the global economy has been forced to bear, especially a lot of the emerging markets, the BRIC nations. They have borne a lion's share of that burden. And I think when the dollar collapses, this is going to let loose an economic boom, because what's going to happen is all of our purchasing power is transferred to other people. So all the factories that produce all the goods, they keep pumping stuff out. The difference is Americans don't get it. People in other countries get it. Their lives are now better. They have more stuff. They have greater purchasing power. And when the world stops financing our debt, they're not going to stop saving. They're just going to use their savings in their own economies. They're going to invest in expanding their own productive capacity. So the world's going to have more goods and more investment capital. And we're going to have fewer goods and less investment capital. So what do Americans get? Much higher prices, much higher living interest rates, and a much lower standard of living. The world gets lower prices, lower interest rates, a higher standard of living. So that's why my whole investment strategy is investing abroad. I've been anticipating this for a long time. It finally started. Last year was the first year that international investing. You look at my my global dividend payer strategy. Did 62% return last year. This is not my gold strategy. This is dividend paying foreign stocks, 62%. I've got a mutual fund too that people could buy, no load. Any discount broker did the same thing. It's based on that separately managed account strategy. And already this year, I forget what we're up, 13, 14% year to date. The S&P is basically flat.
Yeah. This is something I've been telling Jack. I remember 2 years ago, I'm going to say it. For the longest time, I've been 35%, 65%, international US. And I got made fun of so much because my international did nothing. It was flat. It would just pay its 3% dividend, nothing. This last year, I'm up like 40% on my international. It's finally paid off.
Yeah, and this is just the beginning. This is not the end. This is going to be going on for years. This is a major rotation that just started out of U.S. assets, out of U.S. stocks, out of U.S. bonds, out of the U.S. dollar. Our markets are still very expensive compared to the rest of the world. You get much better value by investing abroad. And now you're going to ride this wave of money just getting sucked out of the U.S.
And really quick, I gotta say, something that Jack and I have been trying to do a lot more lately is just to remove the annoyances that quietly waste time and energy, because those things add up fast. The thing is, we're always on the go, we're always trying to get to the next thing, so having a cleaner setup and a little more control in your day really goes a long way, and that is exactly why we absolutely love MagBack. The MagBack Elite case is so much more than just a case. It has the finger loop for a secure grip, side grips that feel great, a pinky pillow for comfort, and a built-in kickstand when you need it.
That is all built to make everyday use way better. And it also just comes with a screen protector, so that's one less thing that you have to worry about.
Then they also have their MagBack 3-in-1 home multi-charger that keeps everything clean and ready to go. You drop your phone, AirPods, and Apple Watch on it at night, and by morning, everything is charged in one place. What I really like about this is that it's not just like a mess of wires that looks awful. I don't have to try to plug and play and which one does what. It's all in one place, and it looks incredibly clean, and it just makes it easy.
I kid you not, Graham and I are genuinely huge fans of MagBack. I use their wallet, I use their phone case, and also on the side of my Tesla screen, I put my phone up there. It is so helpful. Check it out with this footage. I can guarantee if you're on Apple or Android, they have something for you. So if you want to make your setup cleaner and way more efficient, definitely check them out with the link down below, and don't forget to use our code, which is also down below.